Hello, hello, hello. It is Tuesday, November the 11th. Happy Veterans Day, 9 p.m. in the DMV. I'm
And
Sam
6 p.m.
Giacomo.
6 p.m. here in Los Angeles. I'm Jack Armstrong. Welcome to Tech Talk Live.
Feel free to call, chat with your tech news, and kind of a lightning round this week, a little quiet. We should start with your Gmail incident,
Yeah.
I guess, allegedly. At this point, we don't really know if Google is using fear to motivate people to do something. It may kind of be, just change up how you authenticate, and we don't really particularly care, um, you know, about
Well,
why.
absolutely. Well, obviously, online, safety and security online is super important, and Gmail and Google accounts encompass. So many people have Google accounts that are linked to other services. So it's a little scary that there was some news about a hacker group known as Shiny Hunters that have been attacking business-related Gmail data, including contact lists, company associations, and email metadata. So no, not necessarily your password's been leaked, but potentially they've noticed that enough business data had been compromised, and obviously with that information, potential issues could arise. So we see an increase in phishing attacks. Obviously, for years, hackers, have been spoofing emails to subdomains, you know, fooling people into clicking links and entering their information, or and again, that could be as soon as they enter information on a page that looks like your login or your password reset or your whatever page, boom, you're compromised. So obviously, probably a good idea if you're listening to this, change your Gmail password, change your Google password, activate two-factor authentication, and yeah, any other good practices, Sam, that people should be doing given this news?
Yeah, no, to expand on what Jack was saying, this is related to phishing, right? So you get an email, it has a link, but this goes beyond that, because we're at the point where, you know, breaches from other services that have information about your employer or there's very specific things which are then stolen and refactored into a very official, authentic looking email. So this kind of makes it more, realistic than ever, right? We have tools that can create, no longer are phishing emails poorly constructed, riddled with typos and in broken English, right? You know, as tools become more complex, so do the attacks, right? So, as Jack said, reset your password with some regularity. One option too, use a pass key. Passkeys are, password-less authentication, using biometrics on your device or a file. And, they are essentially, and I say essentially fish proof in that way. So, with that and regular just vigilance, stay alert. If something feels off, just go ahead and, reset your password. Why not? If you get a suspicious email, a login notification, a password reset request, somebody's fishing around, both literally and figuratively. So just keep an eye out. Again, this is kind of the modern condition, right? Cybersecurity requires vigilance, really, as a defense. Just be aware of what's happening. If you do get an email that looks like it's from a source, you can try and verify it. If you get an email from your bank, go directly to their website and give them a call or reset your password directly with the trusted party. Don't, don't try and you know, don't be a hero and click
Oh,
on the email,
yeah,
right? So
absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, and if you don't know, yeah, go to the source, log into your account. Do not click links in an email. Go manually to the website, and yeah, stay safe out there.
so moving on, something that we will mention very briefly, very briefly. Now I will navigate around a tidbit that came out. Will autopilot drivers be able to text and drive soon? Quote unquote.
Mm,
Anyway, take
yeah.
what you will about the, you know, we're kind of 10 years into the campaign to classify this as a dangerous behavior, and now we may or may not be encouraging it.
Yeah.
But something to think about, you know, will there be a point, just zooming out in general, will there be a point where, and this is kind of the great ethical debate, right? If automated systems are indeed safer, at what point does it sort of become, is it ever
Yeah.
okay to text and drive, using any autonomous driving system?
Yeah.
A moral dilemma for the day to think about. Um, not necessarily, one we'll dive into right now, but something that I know, Jack, you saw. I don't know,
Yeah.
your thoughts on, will there ever be a point where it will be safe to text and drive? You know,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a little concerning here. It sets an odd precedent, when now, oh yeah, you can text and drive if you have full self-driving, because yeah, you don't have to pay attention. You can fully trust it. It kind of is that gray area. Now, I will say, on the flip side, obviously, see Waymo, and if you take a Waymo, you're not actually intervening, and it's fully, obviously a different system, different technology, lidar, mapped streets, but still at the end of the day, like, you're not going to be taking over there. Do you know what I mean? So obviously, do what you will, I guess, with that information, but I feel like the general public in their own car with Tesla full self-driving, mm, oh yeah, you can pick up your phone, you can use your phone. So it kind of, it creates maybe a false sense of security, but also, like you said, it has been equally, as long as regulators have been trying, texting and driving, people still do it, and you see it all the time. But also, it's been a decade as well, with Tesla's full self-driving system coming out of beta, being tested, and millions and millions of miles of data and training, to get to where it's at today. So I kind of feel like we also we also have had the tech for a long time. So I can see why, Elon and Tesla might feel like, hey, we can be there. But also plenty of accidents, plenty of people not paying attention, and Tesla system is definitely not does not have the record. I think Waymo has a better record. You see a lot. I mean, it's also hard to compare because there's less Waymo trips. Waymos are in very specific locations, and Tesla accidents. Obviously a lot more Teslas out there, a lot more people, and a lot more scenarios. So of course it still is probably safer than a human driver, but we're now giving more and more power to these automated systems for driving to keep us safe. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
moving on, we have some trouble in Zuckland. First, little quick update: those embedded Facebook like widgets that you've come to know and love on third party websites are being sunset in February of next year. So no longer will you be able to like a post on an external website. I don't know if you remember, in the early days of social media, these were everywhere. You could log into your social media account, you could like and share, and comment using their social profile. Um, so it's, essentially kind of in, those embeddings are not, um, more or less going to be used anymore. Um, and I don't know if it's a matter of it's just traffic. Um, being driven down, or is maybe a motivating factor to drive people to the platform itself. um I don't know, I mean, have you seen these around? I've seen them on a lot of blogs, and it just reminds me of the old internet. These were
Yeah.
launched in 2016. So they'll be just about 10 years old before they're retired, and kind of the end of an era in some
Yeah.
ways. uh,
I fully agree with you. Well, I feel like Facebook is in an interesting place because people still use it for certain things. Obviously, like marketplace comes to mind, and I mean, certain people use it more than others. But I don't know. Like we see as social platforms evolve, it doesn't surprise me that they people aren't sharing posts in the same way, and so liking. I don't know. Yeah, just so much has changed. It's definitely an interesting uh, little tidbit. Also, speaking of Meta, Zuck, and Facebook, we have to talk about this little news you found with an
yeah,
illegal
yeah.
school of, sorts, I guess. So where are we at with this?
So this is quite interesting. So kind of a wrinkle in the Zuck fabric, but it appears that our good friend Mark Zuckerberg in Palo Alto has been running a illegal school at his compound, kind of a Montessori gig. Light on details. Perhaps as many as 30 students may have enrolled in this school, and it essentially, again, very light on the details, but through complaints to the city, and other, via traffic or noise or otherwise, um, it's essentially piled on top of all the other complaints for construction and noise, and it's, battle in suburbia, if you will. But regardless of where you fall on the zoning debate of things, I think it was just really quite interesting to have this tidbit of, kind of civil disengagement, I guess you could say. Um, and as some neighbors have said, frankly, I'm not sure what's going on except for noise and construction. So I don't know what's happening at this, secret and elusive compound. But just kind of one of the many activities um, is apparently a, more or less a school for 5 to 10 year olds. So I will, I guess we'll never know what they've taught in this school. Um, but this has apparently been going on for multiple years, at least officially as far back as 2022. Um, so they've been running this little school for quite a while. And
Well, so it's
for
interesting because yeah, because he doesn't really care about like fines and stuff. But like, yeah, why would they not have gone about doing it properly given
well,
his resources?
again, I think it's just kind of one of those instances of rules for thee and not for me. Applying for a permit in some ways is a transparent process. So there could have been a risk analysis done. Privacy is worth more than the fine, so we'll just pay it. And it's kind of a very weird, almost non-headline, but I that came across my news feed late last week, and I thought it was quite interesting. Mainly, really, what are they teaching in there, and why, kind of the need to develop their own school. Um, so read up on it, chat, let us know. Um, yeah, I mean, it's
Absolutely.
what do they teach at the Zuckerberg Academy to the
I
vulnerable population?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Well, well, yeah, we'll see if there's any more headlines about this, but yeah, probably not. I mean, I feel like they'll just pay the fines and or stop doing it, or I don't know. Yeah, they'll do what they got to do. But yeah, fascinating stuff. Also, in other news, we have TSMC is in the news for a few reasons. We have some they have revenue that has exceeded expectations, and their stock price is up 3.1%, I believe, today. And they're also reportedly informing Apple of further price hikes. We have more fabrication processes, obviously, for the 5 nanometer chips, which are Apple's A16, 17, 18, 19, M4, 3, 4, and 5 chips. Um, Looks like it might be up to 10% more expensive now for Apple, which is probably going to mean price increases on the next generation of Macs for consumers.
No, absolutely, and this is big news for the consumer, right? Because as you may or may not know, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation um, has been the undisputed top dog in manufacturing chips. There is no other um there's no other comparable manufacturer for these things, and so naturally, kind of, and again, I've been a believer. I'm not currently a stockholder, but TSMC helped me through some rough times in my life by just YOLOing my retirement into it back in 2022. Because there's no other company that can do what they do, and it's not easy to do this. So what you have somebody who's climbed a very large mountain, and they kind of realize, wow, I'm the only person up here. Turns out I can basically charge whatever I want. And the way that TSMC and Apple have kind of been related is that Apple has bought out, more or less, the most advanced, or the top of the top, the tippy top of the mountain. They've bought out for the past, I mean, at least 3, 4, 5 years, as the sole customer. So that kind of, more or less makes Apple the exclusive, you know, TSMC customer, gives them the latest and greatest. And not only will the existing chips receive a bump of 8 to 10%, their latest iteration, the pseudo 2 nanometer. So this is space age type crap now, right? That cost is expected to be 50% higher than their current 3 nanometer processors. So what that means is we're going to see, something where this is going to seriously dig into the profit margins of the iPhone. And Apple, being known as the very charitable organization that they are, more or less expect a price hike for your iPhone next year. Is essentially
Yeah.
for the 2026 iPhones. Expect only the Pro models to get the latest and greatest, and with the 50% bump, um, and to kind of put that in perspective, right? The chip itself is 5 to 6% of the total retail price. So if that gets bumped up by 50%, expect another 3% on the end of the retail price, maybe 50, $100, depending on how generous or greedy Apple is feeling next year. So I think the
Yeah.
age of the $1,000 iPhone is sadly coming to an end.
Yeah. Wow. Another a piece of inflation here that yeah we don't want to embrace, but sadly is going to be a reality. Yeah, it's funny. It'll be interesting to see what Apple. Also, it kind of surprises me that they they can't look, obviously TSMC is investing like $100 billion into the US. Obviously Trump, has been working to bring semiconductor manufacturing to the US. So they are working on chip plants here, but there's a lot of capital, obviously. But you're right, they can sort of set the prices at whatever they'd like. So we obviously would hope that some of that money will go towards improving I guess, the U.S. economy in the sense of bringing chip manufacturing here. But obviously, we see they can do what they can do what they want. So anyway, and
Well,
yeah, obviously tariff.
and a counterpoint I do want I just have to get in. If you think about it, kind of zooming out, right? So the previous iPhones were more or less the same price. We can think about this like if you had an iPhone 13 and that more or less was the same numerical price as an iPhone 17 Pro, right? So you're still paying $1,099. However, number one, that $1,099 is worth less, just from inflation, right? We're not a macroeconomics podcast, but that
Mhm.
exact number is worth less. But then also the chip in the newer iPhone is also twice as fast. So maybe this is sort of in terms of CPU per dollar, we have seen a wholesale decrease of that. So maybe this is sort of recalibrating long term to, okay, it's three times as fast. And yeah, we're going to charge, essentially, 50% more for it. But ultimately, it's still a better value. Now, whether you need that or not is up to you. And that's kind of where you can decide, is it worth, buying the latest and greatest iPhone?
Yeah. Well, it depends. And also, speaking of iPhones, there was also news about next year's iPhone Air potentially being postponed. Did you see this today too?
I didn't. I
iPhone.
did not. To me, I felt almost like the Air was kind of a one-trick pony.
Yep.
But I'm happy to look at this article because for me, I think the Air was really a half-baked iPhone Fold that they're like, well, we can release again, kind of another beta test product and kind of
Yeah.
recoup some of our money. Like we already have it in development when we've already spent time, money, and effort producing it. So why not just sell it as half the foldable phone and essentially not have to, we can kind of offset some of our costs. It doesn't seem to be too popular, but
Yeah.
I think it's a very Tim Cook esque move, right? Optimize your operations, squeeze every dollar you can out of it. It's like we made a thin iPhone. It's cool. It's the first new form factor we've done in a long time. So I can't blame them, really. I mean, it's sort of, in some ways innovative in terms of optimizing your costs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Very interesting. And well, that's why it's delayed, reportedly, because of weak sales. So obviously more people going for the pros, which kind of to be honest, didn't surprise me. I mean, an orange pro phone, I mean, everybody likes, I'm sorry, showing off the new colors and the new phone and stuff. So I mean, it's kind of an Air, yeah, sure, is the newest phone on that side, but like given the limitations and only one camera, it's kind of like I think people like having multiple lenses and a larger battery that they're going to keep for many years. So I feel like the Air isn't, while it is impressive, I do know someone who really likes it. I feel like, yeah, your average person probably uh, might not go for that model. So anyway, worth mentioning that.
Any last headlines you want to chat about?
I think we did pretty good for today. That's a lot of the main headlines for you today. And yeah, we're here every Tuesday covering your biggest tech stories for the week. And we'll have some special guests lining up. So stay tuned for our future episodes. Bringing some exciting people on soon to talk about tech they are building. So we'll have some insightful conversations and perspectives coming soon. But yeah, until next time, I think we're good for now.
Yeah, we'll be back next week, same time, same place. Feel free to chat or call in with your questions. And as always, talk tech very soon.
And just one final reminder, visit us on the web at techtalklive.xyz and sign up for our newsletter and stay updated anywhere you get your podcasts. Until next week.